Roots of evil. In a small town on the edge of nowhere, an old abandoned house had been standing for years. It was a house that stood out, not just because it was abandoned, but because it was said to be cursed. When a new family moved in, they were unaware of the curse that loomed over their property. Despite the warnings of the townsfolk, the family dismissed the curse as just another small-town superstition. As they settled in, they began to uncover strange markings on the walls, hidden passageways, and other bizarre features that made them feel like they were living in a haunted house. The perplexity of the situation was not lost on them. However, it wasn't until the old oak tree that towered over the house began to invade their property that they realized the curse may be more than just a myth. The roots of the tree snaked their way into the house, growing through the walls and floorboards, and spreading throughout the property like a cancerous growth. The burstings of the situation was palpable. The family tried to cut the roots, but they only grew back stronger. And as the roots continued to invade their house, strange things started to happen. Objects moved on their own, whispers echoed through the halls, and the family started to feel like they were being watched. The perplexity and burstings of their situation continued to escalate. It wasn't long before they realized that the curse of the old oak tree was real and that they were in grave danger. As they delved deeper into the history of the house, they learned that the tree had been used for dark rituals in the past, and that the evil that had been unleashed was still present in the roots. The family sought the help of the town's elders, but they were met with skepticism and disbelief. They were on their own and time was running out. As the roots of the old oak tree continued to spread, the family worked tirelessly to find a way to break the curse. They consulted ancient texts, performed arcane rituals, and even sought the help of a local witch. The perplexity of their situation had reached its peak. Finally, after weeks of research and experimentation, they found a way to break the curse. They would have to destroy the old oak tree and burn its roots to ash. It was a dangerous mission, but the family knew they had no choice. Armed with axes and shovels, they set out to destroy the tree. The burstings of the situation came to a climax as they hacked away at the trunk. But as they did, they realized that they were not alone. The evil that had been unleashed by the old oak tree had taken physical form, and it was now standing before them, ready to protect its source of power. The family fought bravely, but it was a losing battle. In the end, the curse of the old oak tree consumed the family, just as it had consumed so many others before them. The roots continued to spread, and the whispers of the curse echoed through the halls of the abandoned house. The perplexity of their fate was sealed. Years passed, and the old house on the edge of town remained abandoned, a monument to the curse that had claimed the lives of the family that once lived there. But the curse of the old oak tree was not content to stay contained within the boundaries of the property. The town of Millbrook became plagued by strange occurrences. Unexplained deaths, disappearances, and sightings of dark figures lurking in the shadows became all too common. The burstings of the situation was overwhelming. Despite the warnings, newcomers continued to move into the town, drawn by the idyllic setting and peaceful atmosphere. But it wasn't long before they too fell victim to the curse. The roots of the old oak tree continued to spread like a virus, infecting everything in its path with a relentless, insidious force. People started to disappear without a trace, leaving behind nothing but a sense of unease and dread. Strange symbols began to appear on buildings and signs, marking them as targets for the curse's malevolent power. As the curse grew stronger, so did the sense of desperation among the townsfolk. They tried everything they could think of to break the curse, burning sage, reciting prayers, seeking out the help of local mystics and holy men, but nothing seemed to work. As the years went by, the curse seemed to become more and more powerful, and the townsfolk began to lose hope. They resigned themselves to a life of fear and uncertainty, always looking over their shoulders for the next attack. But there were still those who refused to give up. A small group of brave souls, determined to break the curse once and for all, banded together to take on the evil that had infected their town. They spent months researching the curse, gathering information from every source they could find. They talked to experts in folklore and mythology, dug through dusty archives and ancient texts, and even sought out the help of psychics and mediums. Finally, after months of work, they uncovered a way to break the curse. It would be risky and dangerous, requiring a deep knowledge of the curse's true nature and a willingness to confront it head-on. Armed with their knowledge and their determination, the group set out to destroy the old oak tree and burn its roots to ash. They worked tirelessly, hacking away at the trunk with axes and shovels, determined to break the curse once and for all. But as they worked, they could feel the evil energy of the curse gathering around them. It was as if the curse itself was fighting back, trying to protect its source of power. Undaunted, The group fought on, their determination giving them strength in the face of the curse's malevolent power. They worked through the night, never giving up until finally they succeeded. With the old oak tree destroyed and its roots burned to ash, the curse was broken. The town of Millbrook was free from the curse's malevolent influence, and the townsfolk could finally rest easy, knowing that they were safe. But even as they celebrated their victory, they knew that they could never let their guard down. For in a world where curses and dark forces lurk around every corner, there can be no room for complacency. And so they remained vigilant, always watching, always ready to confront the next threat that came their way. Shadows of the past. The collection of acquaintances had long been entranced by the enigmatic old oak tree situated at the outskirts of the settlement. Its towering presence, like a skeletal hand extending upward, beckoned to them with an alluring force. Thus, on a balmy evening in the height of summer, the group decided to venture into the forest and investigate the vicinities surrounding the tree, but they had no notion of what they were about to face. As they penetrated deeper into the woods, they stumbled upon an age-old burial ground. The gravestones were weathered in age, the etched names and dates barely legible. However, as they dug deeper, they discovered something even more sinister. Beneath the graves, they came upon an antiquated, corroded door, sealed tightly shut. It required every ounce of their strength to pry it open, but what they found beyond was something beyond their wildest imaginations. The space was minuscule and cramped, with walls constructed from stone and a floor coated in dirt. Standing at the center of the chamber was an ancient wooden chest. The group hesitated momentarily, unsure of how to proceed. However, their curiosity overcame them, and they slowly approached the chest. The moment they lifted the lid, a powerful gust of wind coursed through the room, extinguishing their flashlights. In the pitch blackness, they heard the sound of something stirring within the chest. All of a sudden, the lid slammed shut, trapping their hands inside. They screamed in terror, but their cries went unanswered. Eventually, they managed to free themselves, but they were trapped inside the room, with no way out. And as they sat there in the darkness, they sensed the shadows of the past slowly enveloping them. The atmosphere grew thick with the stench of death, and eerie whispers echoed throughout the chamber. The shadows gyrated around them, tormenting them with fleeting glimpses of the horrors concealed in the darkness. It was then that they realized that they were not alone in the room. Something was watching them, waiting for them to make a move. As they scrambled to escape the terrors that besieged them, they comprehended that they would have to face the darkness that lurked inside them. They delved deep into their innermost beings, summoning every ounce of courage and fortitude. Ultimately, they succeeded in breaking free from the chamber, fleeing into the night. However, the curse of the old oak tree pursued them relentlessly, hunting them with the specters of the past. They realized then that they would never truly be free of the darkness that resided within them, for the curse had claimed them as its own. As years passed, the memories of that fateful night lingered in the minds of the group. They endeavored to move on with their lives, but the shadows of the past continued to pursue them. Mysterious events took place around them, objects shifting on their own, whispers in the stillness of the night, and shadows that appeared to possess a life of their own. They attempted to dismiss it as mere imagination, but deep down they were aware the curse had never abandoned them. One by one, the members of the group began to disappear, consumed by the shadows of the past. It was as if the curse was finally exacting revenge on those who had dared to disrupt its slumber. In the end, only one of the friends remained. They had tried to caution the others, but no one had heeded their warnings. Now they were sole individual left to fight against the curse of the old oak tree. Armed with the knowledge they had acquired over the years, they returned to the burial ground. They were aware that the curse was too potent to be shattered by mere mortals, but they were determined to try nonetheless. As they stood before the old oak tree, they could feel the weight of centuries of darkness bearing down upon them. It was as if the tree itself was alive, pulsating with an otherworldly energy that they could barely comprehend. With trembling hands, they began to chant the ancient incantation that they had discovered during their years of research. The words felt strange and foreign on their tongues, but they persisted, knowing that they had no other choice. Suddenly, the ground began to shake, and the air grew thick with the stench of death. The trees around them creaked and groaned as if bending to the will of some unseen force. The lone survivor felt a surge of fear and doubt, wondering if they had bitten off more than they could chew. But then they remembered their fallen friends, and the terror gave way to a fierce determination. They closed their eyes and focused their mind, channeling all their energy into the incantation. The words grew louder and more intense, until it felt as if the very fabric of reality was tearing apart. And then, with a blinding flash of light, the curse was broken. The group stood in shock as the shadows of the past melted away, replaced by a warm and comforting glow. The old oak tree stood tall and proud, free from the curse that had plagued it for centuries. But as they walked away from the burial ground, they knew that the scars of that fateful night would never fully heal. The memories of their fallen friends would haunt them forever, a reminder of the darkness that lay within all of them. They knew that they had been lucky to survive, and that they had faced a foe far more powerful than any mortal could ever imagine. But they also knew that they had emerged victorious, and that they had achieved something truly remarkable. As they looked back at the old oak tree, they could feel a sense of peace settling over the land. The curse had been broken, and the darkness that had once hung over the burial ground had dissipated. The lone survivor took one last look at the tree, and then turned away, walking towards a new dawn. They knew that the journey ahead would be difficult, but they also knew that they had the strength and courage to face whatever lay ahead. And as they walked away, they could feel the warmth of the sun on their face, a symbol of the hope and renewal that lay ahead. The hanging tree. In the small town of Millbrook, the pride that the people felt for their history would ultimately prove to be their undoing. The center of the town was marked by an old oak tree, a testament to the resilience and perseverance of the town. But as the centuries went by, the tree began to wither and decay, and it became clear that it was time to chop it down. At a meeting called to decide the fate of the tree, the town council unanimously voted to remove it. The decision was met with cheers and applause, but unbeknownst to them, a curse that had been dormant for generations was about to be awakened. As the work crews arrived to cut down the tree, strange and terrifying events began to occur. People reported seeing ghostly figures lurking in the shadows, and strange noises echoed through the streets at night. The town was consumed by a sense of dread, and no one knew why. It wasn't until a group of teenagers, daring and curious, decided to investigate the old oak tree and the curse that had been awakened, that the dark history of the tree was uncovered. They discovered that in the early days of the town, the tree had been used for brutal punishments. Under its branches, people had been hanged for crimes both real and imagined, and the violence and cruelty that had been carried out under the old oak tree sent shudders down the spines of the teenagers. As they continued their investigation, the teenagers began to realize that the curse of the tree was not just a myth. It was real and growing strong every day, but their warnings fell on deaf ears, and the curse of the old oak tree eventually consumed the town of Millbrook. Years later, the old oak tree still stood in the center of town, a stark reminder of the curse that had destroyed Millbrook. No one dared to touch it, fearing that the darkness within would awaken, and so the town remained abandoned, a cautionary tale for anyone who dared to disturb the ancient spirits that lay dormant in the earth. Travelers passing through the town of Millbrook would sometimes hear whispers on the wind, the echoes of the brutal punishments that had been carried out under the old oak tree. The whispers were a warning, a reminder of the danger that lurked in the darkness. But despite the danger, a small group of outsiders, urban explorers, drawn in by the town's eerie reputation, stumbled upon the abandoned town. As they made their way through the deserted streets, they felt the weight of the curse upon them. They knew that they were not alone. Approaching old oak tree, the explorers heard a rustling sound, indicating that something was moving in the branches above. When they looked up, in the end, the curse of the old oak tree consumed the urban explorers, just as it had consumed the town of Millbrook years before. Their bodies were found hanging from the branches of the old oak tree, their faces contorted in terror. The curse of the old oak tree remained as powerful and deadly as ever. The whispers on the wind continued, warning anyone who dared to disturb the ancient spirits that lay dormant in the earth. The old oak tree remained a grim reminder of the danger that lurked in the darkness, and the curse that could never be broken. The last stand. In a world that had been ravaged by disaster and left barren, a group of survivors had been traveling for months, with nothing but a bleak landscape surrounding them. They searched for any sign of life. They were desperate and in need of shelter. Finally, their luck seemed to change when they stumbled upon an old oak tree, the first sign of life they had seen in weeks. The group eagerly sought shelter under its branches, but as the sun began to set, they heard strange noises coming from the woods. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the shadows seemed to writhe and twist of their own accord. It wasn't long before they realized that the curse of the tree had survived the apocalypse. and they were in grave danger. The survivors huddled together under the branches of the tree, experiencing terrifying visions and nightmares, each one more horrific than the last. They saw the ghosts of those who had died under the tree, and they felt the cold touch of death on their skin. Despite their fear and desperation, the survivors refused to give up. They knew that they had to break the curse if they were to have any hope of surviving in this world. They set out to unravel the mystery of the curse, delving deep into the dark history of the tree and the terrible things that had been done under its branches. As they uncovered the truth, they realized that the curse could only be broken by making the ultimate sacrifice. One of them would have to offer their life to the tree, giving it the energy it needed to break free of its curse. In the end, a young woman named Emily made the sacrifice, giving her life to break the curse and save her friends. As she breathed her last breath, the curse was lifted and the survivors were free at last. But their freedom was short-lived, as they realized they couldn't leave the tree. It was their only source of shelter and protection against the harsh environment. However, as days turned into weeks, supernatural occurrences continued to escalate. The tree seemed to have a life of its own, as if it was feeding off their fears and weaknesses, growing stronger with each passing day. The survivors started to succumb to the curse one by one. Some were driven to madness, while others were taken by the spirits that haunted the tree. But the remaining few refused to give up. They banded together, determined to break the curse and survive against all odds. They scoured the area for any clues or information that could help them unravel the mystery of the tree's curse. As they dug deeper into its history, they uncovered a dark and sinister past. The tree had been the site of countless executions, and the spirits of the condemned were said to be trapped within its branches. Despite the danger, the survivors refused to back down. They knew that they were the last hope for humanity, and that they couldn't let the curse of the tree defeat them. With all their strength and willpower, they gathered together to perform a ritual that they hoped would finally break the curse. As they chanted and burned sage, the spirits of the condemned began to scream and writhe within the tree. It was as if they were fighting back, trying to cling onto the curse had kept them trapped for so long. But the survivors poured every ounce of their energy into the ritual, refusing to back down. And finally the curse was broken. The survivors emerged from the tree, battered and bruised, but victorious. They had conquered their greatest fears and emerged strongly because of it. They knew that they had a chance to rebuild the shattered world, but they would never forget the horrors they had faced under the shadow of the cursed tree. The tree's revenge. The centuries-old oak tree had stood at the edge of the town for generations, serving as a silent sentinel to the comings and goings of the townspeople. Little did they know, however, that a fateful day under the tree's branches would change everything. The notorious criminal, the butcher of Millbrook, had met his demise at the tree's feet, spitting out a dying curse aimed at the tree itself. The townspeople, non-believers in the supernatural, dismissed the notion of a cursed tree. Nevertheless, they would come to rue their disbelief. Years later, the town was planning to expand its highway, and the old oak tree stood in the way. The decision was made to cut it down, but as the chainsaws came to life, strange happenings began to occur. At first, there was merely a sense of unease, a feeling that eyes were on them from the shadows, but soon inexplicable deaths began to happen. The first casualty was the mayor, who had fought for the tree's removal. He was discovered hanging from the tree's branches, his vacant eyes locked on the sky. As the body count rose, it became clear that the curse was real. The townspeople panicked. But how do you halt a cursed tree? In the midst of the chaos, a group of unlikely heroes emerged. A ragtag bunch of misfits and outcasts. They shared a connection to the tree, sensing its presence and feeling its malevolent energy. They knew that they were the sole hope to stop the curse. With nothing but their wits and a determination to save their town, they set out on a dangerous mission to halt the tree's revenge. Their path was fraught with danger at every turn, but failure was not an option. Ultimately, a young girl was the one to find the answer. She had always been attuned to the voices of the dead, and she listened carefully as the tree spoke to her. She learned that the curse could only be broken through a sacrifice offered to the tree. The group knew it was a terrible idea, but they recognized that it was the only way to save the rest of the town. As they stood beneath the oak tree, the sacrifice was made and the curse was shattered. The tree's revenge was over, but the memory of its evil remained, a reminder of the darkness's potency and the cost of disbelief. The townspeople, now in a state of fear, tried to end the tree's rampage. Some attempted to chop it down, while others tried to burn it, but none were successful. As the death toll grew, the townspeople turned on each other, each blaming the other for the curse and their impending doom. In the midst of the turmoil, a young girl named Sarah unearthed a long-forgotten legend about the tree. According to the tale, the curse could only be broken through an offering to the tree, an offering of equal value to that which had been taken. With no other alternatives, Sarah made the ultimate sacrifice, offering her own life to the tree in exchange for the town's safety. As the tree consumed her life force, the curse broke, and the tree crumbled to nothingness. The townspeople mourned their losses but recognized that without Sarah's sacrifice, they would have perished under the tree's wrath, and so they erected a statue in her memory, a reminder of the dangers of meddling with the supernatural and the price one must pay to break a curse.